In a world where Gen X women are literally trying to understand menopause and just survive out here, and Jesus must be the center of everything we do so we don't end up in jail.
We want to reserve a place where we can address our hot flashes and most definitely everything the Holy Ghost has laid on our hearts, all at the same time.
I'm Michelle.
I'm Elena.
So come on, let's talk about it.
Hello. Okay.
We always be laughing when we start.
Yes, and we said we weren't going to joke around today, but we're not, but kind of, because we said that y'all are going to get to meet our husbands on this episode. This is the final episode for Substance Abuse Awareness Month for October.
Right. You get to meet the ones that put up with all of this.
So, without further ado, we're going to introduce the better sides of us, the better halves of us.
Definitely.
Come on.
More responsible. This is
Kelton.
Pastor Kelton.
This is the pastor of
This
Hot
is our
Flashes and Holy Ghost.
Holy Ghost
This is the
Pastor Kelton. And our sound guy.
This is the media designer, consultant, sound technician, administrator of Hot Flashes and Holy Ghost.
This is the one that has to literally sit in here and listen to all of the stuff that comes
my
out of our mouth.
husband hides in the house or outside while we record.
Oh, he's praying. I feel like Kelton a whole prayer meeting going on in there for us.
Yeah, so this is Kelton.
Yes, it is.
And Matt.
Yes, it is.
And these are...
We didn't make those people up. They
right.
really exist.
They exist. That's really why we did
so
this, because we know some of y'all be thinking...
The proof is in the pudding. this is it.
So
right
yes, here they are. They do exist.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable are you right now? Not really. That's not an answer. 1 to 10.
27.
Oh, nice. Okay.
What's your number? 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable are you right now, Kelton?
1. I'm fine.
Kelton's like, I could do. Kelton like, Elena, could you please get up? Let me go ahead and sit down. Let me just go ahead and sit down. I got this.
He's that person Pastor was preaching to this morning when Pastor's like, you can't go around saying that I don't like people. That's not spiritual. You don't like people. I wanted so bad to punch him in the arm and be like, he's preaching to you. I didn't do it, though.
If Pastor would have said, you need to like people at your house after 9 o'clock at night, I'd been like, oh, that's for Kelton. Hallelujah. I'm just kidding.
We have a curfew at our house. No company allowed past 9 p.m.
Don't be showing up over here. Don't. I know Halloween next week. Don't be showing up here to trick or treat.
If we ever invite you to a function at our house, just know at 9 p.m., you got to be gone.
Wind it up.
You can't stay. Kelton will ask you to
Wind
leave.
it up. Wind it up.
So yes.
This is them.
These are them.
Yep.
These are
The
those.
only time you can stay later than 9 is prayer meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We do get allowed to pray late as we want to when
That's
we have
true.
prayer. We have a group that meets here for prayer sometimes.
Yep.
And we
He
don't get a
he
time.
don't make us cut it
He
off
don't
at
make a
9.
curfew for that.
That's
I feel like
true.
he thinks we probably need to pray round the clock.
Yeah. He okay with that.
Take that pray without ceasing scripture
That's right.
seriously. Anyway,
Service. Well,
yes. So they
this
didn't
is
want
them.
to, but we kind of twisted their arms. So
Yep.
thank y'all for joining us.
We love y'all.
Love y'all.
You can go now.
Okay. See, that
As
wasn't
you take
so
the set
bad.
with you. Do I need to fix that? He's gonna check it now because he kicked the set. Does it need to be fixed?
It's great. Let's roll.
Let's roll with it.
Okay, so we hounded y'all until y'all sent all your questions in.
Yep.
So let's get started. You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start.
You got some, I got some, and then we'll meet in the middle somewhere.
Right. So these, if you haven't been watching us and this is your first episode,
Welcome.
October is First off, shame on you. I'm just
welcome.
kidding, but welcome. We love you anyhow. But October is Substance Abuse Awareness Month. We've been sharing our stories, talking about substance abuse, talking about how that affects our lives, and then we asked everybody to send in their questions, send in topics, send in things that you want us to talk about. So here we are. So the first thing that I'm going to, I'm gonna pull this over here because I feel like I'm talking away from the mic. I had Jessica's aunt. She sent in, why are they, addicts, selfish, and why do they feel entitled?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question. And I feel like I could personally answer that question with my own experience.
Go ahead.
I think that you're so sucked into this little tunnel. I don't know that you really realize you're being selfish
You don't.
because your world is
All
a
about you.
fog. And and if it's not about you, then
It's not important.
yeah. No, for real.
That's how it is.
Like
yeah.
for real.
You don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that there's lots of different types of substance abuse. So I know there's alcohol, there's obviously stronger drugs than others. There's not, but in my experience, I was addicted to meth. You were addicted to meth. I think we can both say that that drug, it makes you this person that if it's either about you when it's not supposed to be,
Yeah.
or you are so oblivious to how it affects others
Yes.
that you just kind of go on your merry little way.
Yeah. You make it about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
And you don't, I would dare say that because any type of addiction creates such a presence of denial, you don't realize that you're being selfish. And on the chance that you do, you're going to deny it
Yeah.
because that's what addicts do.
For sure.
And that sounds like kind of funny, but I'm not being
No, I get
sarcastic.
what
That's
you're
really
saying.
true.
Yeah.
Because denial is the number one character defect
Yeah.
of a drug addict
For sure.
or an alcoholic or
Yeah.
an abuser or any kind of,
Yeah.
it doesn't just have to be drugs.
Yeah.
Denial is one of the number one character defects.
Yeah.
So I would dare say that, it's not, you're not yourself. You're not in your right mind, obviously.
And that entitlement that she's talking, why do they feel entitled? It's rooted in that very same thing.
Sure. And all I would dare say, and you can agree or disagree, this is my opinion only. I don't have research for this. Almost always there is something that the person, the addict, feels like they missed out on at some point. This was done to me, this wasn't done to me, and so I deserve this.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to do this for me, or when I needed this,
Yeah.
it wasn't given to me.
For sure.
Or I was raised like this and it wasn't fair, so I deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
I deserve to live my life.
Yeah.
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 That's just
And what I do doesn't affect you anyhow. So why are
Right.
you in my business?
this just affects me. It doesn't affect
Yeah.
anybody else.
Which is the biggest
Which
lie.
is the biggest lie ever. But
biggest
yeah.
lie.
So
But,
anyway,
Yeah. So it's a good question.
absolutely.
Go for it.
Let's see.
We're gonna take turns. We got 2 sets.
I don't have a fancy iPad, so I just got this piece of paper here. I have a laptop. I just didn't use it.
Stop.
Actually, Brother Michael, my mentor and counselor, and asked me this question. He said, "Do you ever have the urge to go back? Does the spirit or it would be a spirit of relapse or that spirit of addiction, does it ever visit you? Do you ever have the urge to go back?" And my immediate response was absolutely not. I don't, thankfully. And I know that that's just a personal, I feel like that's different with everybody depending on where you're at in your journey. I do believe that once you get to a point in your relationship with God on the journey of healing, that you are delivered. He
Absolutely.
delivers you from that.
Yeah.
I believe that's, I'm not going to say every time, and you can agree or disagree, when people relapse, it is a lot of times, maybe not every time, but a lot of times it is because they've put themselves in a situation that they shouldn't have put themselves
Yeah.
in on the road to while they were on a recovery journey.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like, I know there's exception to every rule, and so I will say that, but I feel like that probably more times than not, it is because that person has reacquainted themselves with
Yeah.
someone they shouldn't
There's been a
have.
window or door left
They've
open.
gone somewhere they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
It-
Let go
it's-
of some friends they
Yeah.
should have let go of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I have absolutely not. And I'll be honest with you, after we had this conversation, I rarely ever have had relapse dreams. Maybe over the 8 years that I've been clean and sober, maybe 1 or 2. And in the dreams, in both of the dreams, I have not ever been using in the dreams. The temptation has come and I have run from it.
Yeah.
But this past week, the week before this past one, I got really sick, and there was one night there, and I had a relapse dream, and it was terrifying. And so that was after he had asked this question, and I thought, well, we'll talk about this. And so I thought, isn't that just like the enemy to put something like that in your mind or something, that to happen. And I was sick, and so I wasn't feeling the best on top of that. And I know there were some things going on in the spirit there as well. And I thought, we have to stand on what we know, where we're at on the journey. No matter if we're a day into it, a year, 10 years, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We have to stand on the word and stand on what we know.
Yeah.
In order to be successful.
Yeah.
And that means cutting things out of your life and cutting people out of your life sometimes.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
so,
I've had relapse dreams, and I've had a couple where I was using in the dream and I woke up and I was just, but I think that it's such a cowardly move of the enemy, because the reason that I feel like you those things happen while we're asleep is because that's when we're the least conscious.
yes.
And my go-to scripture for that is 2 Corinthians 10. I think it's 5 and 6 or 4 and 5, or it may be 1 Corinthians. I don't know. It's one of the Corinthians. Anyhow, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down and taking every thought into captivity. And I speak that scripture. I do anyhow whenever something's awry. But the times that I've had those dreams, that's the scripture that I've spoken, and that it leaves that. Whatever it is, it just dissipates. But I'm with you. I feel like when you stand in deliverance and healing,
Yes.
I think if you cut off the things that need to be cut off,
Absolutely.
God holds you up.
And that's hard. Sometimes that's one of the hardest parts of the journey to do is cut things out and cut people off.
But you can't
especially
get better in the
people.
same environment you got sick in.
No. I tell people that all the time.
Yeah.
So,
You got to change it up.
yeah.
So Faith asked, do you think that addiction runs in families? If so, what do you think contributes to that, nature or nurture?
So I probably have a little bit of a different take on this because I grew up in a great family.
Same.
My mom and dad were both filled with the Holy Ghost at a younger age. I grew up on a Pentecostal church pew, so
Same.
my parents did not cuss. They did not smoke. They did not drink. They did not do drugs.
Yeah.
Certainly never did drugs. Now, I do remember at a couple different points in my life, my parents, both of them were backslid at one point and then ended up coming back to God. And I do remember occasionally during that time, they would go out with friends or celebrate or something and they would drink or whatever, but they never did it at home and they never did it. They didn't have parties or gatherings at our house where alcohol was involved. It just never, I don't ever remember that happening.
Yeah.
Ever. I do know that I have a great grandpa on my mom's side that was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But I would say that is not always the case because I did not come from a family of addicts.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I don't know anyone else in my family
That struggled with addiction.
that has struggled with drug addiction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say I don't have anyone in my family that's never done drugs. I can think of a couple people down the line that I know at one point in time because I've heard stories,
Yeah.
but I don't know of anybody in my family that's ever been lost in addiction besides me.
I think that there's definitely generational things that can be handed down. But I guess the sad thing is it's hard to look at this question without looking at it as an apostolic believer. We know what the power of God can do. We know the power of breaking generational curses. We
Yes.
know the power behind that. And so there are people out there that don't know what that means. So they do look at it, well, my dad was an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic. There's that. It makes me think, though, of when she asked nature or nurture, that's a tough thing to answer because have you heard that story where the alcoholic had two sons, and the one son became an alcoholic because his father was an alcoholic, and the other one stayed sober and never drank because his father was an alcoholic.
Yes.
So I think it's perspective, and I think it's what we teach, and I think it's the power of choice. And I think that it's, are you going to choose something because your parent did it? One of your parents did? Are you going to choose something different in spite
In spite of, yeah.
of what they did? And I think that like my kids, my two boys, they could not even imagine, even in times when they weren't in church, when they were with their dad and they didn't go to church or anything, they couldn't imagine connecting themselves to any kind of thing in life with a substance because of everything they watched me walk through.
Right.
And it doesn't terrify them, but it almost disgusts them.
Yes.
You know? And so I think that do I think that it's handed down in our DNA? No, I don't. Now, that's just my opinion. There could be studies out there to prove that it absolutely does, and maybe that I can be wrong. But in my experience, generational curses can be handed down. I'm just so thankful that I was raised knowing how to break those things, and I was able to teach my kids, because I most certainly want my kids to break anything that I may have handed down to them, especially during that season in my life.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's something that's handed down in DNA. I could be wrong.
Right.
We ain't doctors. Y'all remember this.
No, we're not.
We ain't even professionals.
I feel like we can be professional.
I feel like we put our glasses on and we come
Right.
up here with our
Let's-
notes and
let's
stuff,
take it.
and we acting like we ain't. This is a disclosure. Don't no one bring no lawsuit against us because you think we giving legal, structured. We only
Okay.
talking from our experience and how we
Yes.
feel and think.
Yes.
So
Let's see. This next question is good. It came from one of my coworkers. She asked, "What did your family do to help you, and did they get any treatment or instructions or anything like that?" So, what is that? How do you answer that question?
my family didn't. I will tell you, my family didn't. You
Rhonda
know,
Vicky put the smack down on you.
huh?
Rhonda Vicky just put the smack down on you
Yeah,
and was like,
I
"You
wasn't
wanna-
allowed to
you
lock
wanna do
doors.
right."
I got all my privileges taken away, all the things. But I wish they would have. I wish they would have. I think that it's valuable. I think that it has a place in the recovery process. And I think sometimes we get so focused on the addict themselves and what they need that we forget all of the people that have been trampled on in the process. Out of my children, only one of them have been to counseling, and it was so valuable. And I wish that I would have done it for all of my kids. I wish that's something I would have made sure all of them were in, because we leave a lot of baggage behind for other people to pick up. And a lot of it's unknowing and it's unintentional. And we're so focused on getting ourselves better that I think that we don't realize the wake, like what's been hit in the wake of things, you know, like in those tidal waves of change, and they don't know how to trust anything. I remember Morgan looking at me whenever I was getting clean and sober, like, yeah, right. Like she said this a million times. And so, you know, it's just one of those things that I think there's a lot of value to it, but because I didn't go to a rehab or a recovery home or anything like that, I think that it never clicked in my mind. It's something that I wish my family would have gotten. You know, my Uncle Gerald and Aunt Brenda, you know, the Morrises. And I think that, if my family hadn't been prayer warriors, and you can probably speak to this because even though your experience was different, you know what part prayer plays in everything. And I think that that's really all that saved them through it. And it was, you know, still sometimes my Aunt Brenda will be crying when I'll be talking about something. She'll say, still, there's things that you'll talk about. I was talking to her about sleeping behind Burger King, you know, this little place behind Burger King that I would sleep. And she just started busting out crying. And she was like, you know, I know you went through all these things, and I think sometimes you talk about stuff, and I really didn't realize sometimes the depth of it or whatever. So I do wish that all of my family that were affected by those choices, and I wish they could have had somebody, because I do think there's lots of value to it. Talk about your experience, though, because yours was different.
I went to a recovery house, a rehabilitation center for a year. And in order to get visits from my family every month, they had to go
Yeah.
to class. They had to go to a session. And it was at the beginning of the visit, and they would hold it. I think it would be about an hour. It was an hour or less. But they would hold it, and someone from your family had to be there, or you couldn't have a visit. And so generally what my parents would do because my family came every time I could have a visit, my family was so supportive. Generally what my parents would do would come, and my daughters, I would get to visit with them while they were in the class.
Yeah.
Or one of my parents would stay behind and one of my daughters would go sometimes. My sister and my brother-in-law went to some of them. So all of my family, my sister, brother-in-law, both my kids, my mom and my dad, at some point went to one or more of those sessions and classes in the year of my treatment. And they were very valuable. They learned things that they wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Yeah.
So it was very helpful. It was hard for them to hear some of the things that they had to hear, but it was very helpful.
Yeah.
So it was, I would say
There's value to it.
There's value to it. But I also say that knowing that a lot of times or sometimes you may not have a support system. You may not have a family that you can rely on to help you through healing and recovery. And call this whatever you will, a plug, maybe not a plug, whatever. But that is why places like the class we have on Monday nights at the sanctuary is so important. And not
I feel
just
like you should
our
be saying
class.
plug and we're talking about
Well,
something.
right. It's me a
Jesus.
bit of a trigger. But that's why those things are so important. And most every church or community center
Yeah.
or there, you can
Even
find,
AA. You can find an AA class.
You can look up a local AA, which we learned so much about
100%
that
support.
at the 7 Recovery Lab we just went to, and
Yeah.
I did buy the big book, and I've been reading through it. It's phenomenal.
Me too.
So whether it's your local AA, whether it's a Celebrate Recovery somewhere, whether it's whatever it is, when you don't, whether you do or don't, but especially when you don't have a family support system, because not everybody does. I realize even talking about that is such a blessing for the both of us to have had that. A lot of people don't. So I don't take that lightly, but I will say that if you don't have a family unit that is strong and supportive, seek out one of the classes, seek out your local AA, find somewhere to go
Yeah.
to have a community of people that will encourage you and support you, and you can lean on one another. Get
Absolutely.
a sponsor, get an accountability partner.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to do, get somebody that's going to be in your corner.
Yeah.
That is so important.
It really is.
I won't say that you can't make it without one, because that's not true, but it's so much easier when you have somebody in your corner that is not going to judge you and you can lean on no matter what. I believe that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
And there's the what is the class that is, I know the class, I could say it a million times. It starts with an A. It's not Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's the
NA, Narcotics Anonymous.
no, it's the
ACTS.
not Axe,
No?
Akron. Why can't I think of what it's called?
I have no idea.
All
what
the
you're
people
talking
from
about
Seven
now.
Recovery are probably watching us right now. Like, it's for family members.
Oh, yes, but I don't know the name of it.
Oh, why can't I think of it? My binder's right back there. Like, I wish I could go grab it.
Well,
Anyhow,
anyway, there is a class apparently.
look
We'll
in your
tell you on the
community
next
because
one.
there's resources
Yes.
even for family members.
Yes.
And so talking about that and the question originated with family members going to counseling and
Yes.
stuff. There are classes
Classes
that
for
are
families.
targeted. They target that.
Yes.
That is a resource for family members. So
Yes.
look in your community, see what it has to offer. The next question is anonymous. It was submitted by someone anonymously, and they said, "I have always been an enabler. I know this. I guess due to my love language being acts of service. How do I help him stop drinking? He's an alcoholic. It's something we pray about, but I don't know how to help him stop."
Well, my first response to that question, and I think we talked about this earlier, you can't.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that sounds so, but you can't. It has got to be, it's got to be God, and there has to be deliverance there.
And it's got to start with the denial, stepping out of denial.
Yes.
He's got to acknowledge that he has a
Yes.
problem.
I was going to say, accepting or acknowledging that there is a problem is the first step. And then looking inwardly
Yeah.
at himself and saying, okay, clearly there is something in my life, something, whether it be present, past, however you want to categorize it, that contributed to this.
Yeah.
Because nobody wakes up and says, or gets to a stage in their life and says, well, I want to be an alcoholic.
Yeah. I want to be a drug
Oh,
addict.
I think I want to be a drug addict.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
No.
There is something
There's a void or something that you're
that
trying
has
to
happened,
start
or
it
there's
somewhere.
a space where something has been allowed, and you have to find that and address it.
Yeah.
And you have to want to address it.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets hard. When you, and I say you, when God shows you and directs you, because he will if you're serious about it.
Sure.
When he does, and you realize, oh, that's where I went wrong. That's where this happened.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid to address it.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid to face it,
You gotta have courage.
because that's when the hard work comes in.
Sure.
That's when and that is the toughest part for a lot of people, is
Yeah.
because,
Especially someone you love.
sure, because ignoring the elephant in the room is way easier
Yeah.
than addressing it.
Yeah. But on the same token, enabling and ignoring it. I heard someone describe enabling is literally loving someone to death.
Yes.
And so pretending like it's not there because you don't want to acknowledge it or you don't want to have to
Right.
deal with it. There's a way to handle things with love, in love.
Sure.
It ain't always easy.
No.
But there is a way to handle things in love. And knowing the person that asked this question, she's maybe one of the most loving, beautiful human beings I've ever known. Like truthfully. But wanting to avoid it because that's your love language, and trying to find a solution by not addressing it,
Yeah.
it's unrealistic. I know that. I know that for myself, because I couldn't keep on thinking that a gushing wound was going to go away by pretending like it wasn't there. But maybe find a class for y'all to go together. Maybe it's a Bible study.
Sure.
Maybe it's not. Maybe it doesn't have to be a Alcoholics Anonymous, or
Right.
maybe search out the community and see if there are some classes that you can attend together that are really bringing you closer to God, but also maybe looking at some of those hard things that are
Absolutely.
that are where addiction's rooted in, and
Yes.
and maybe digging some of those. Maybe that's a first step, and maybe down the road AA comes in or something
Right.
like that. But it can start there, but you can't carry that weight.
No.
Enabling someone, it actually takes that weight and puts it on your back. It doesn't take it away from them, really.
No,
it
it
just
just adds
creates
to.
more weight to
Yes.
put on your back, because your whole life is like running around with a pillow trying to catch
Yeah.
broken pieces, and you're always going to get cut on those broken pieces. So you're not saving anybody
Right.
anything.
And I'll say this too, because I enabled my ex-husband for years.
Yeah.
Because I was not a drug addict when we got together.
Yeah.
I had never been exposed to that kind of lifestyle.
Right.
Never, just never had. And I enabled him for almost 20 years. And all that did in the end, when everything unraveled, because of the weight and because of the responsibility that I had taken on, because I love it. I just loved him. I just wanted it to be okay. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
adapt
Adapt to his world.
I would do whatever.
Keep everything.
Yes, I would do whatever. I was not a perfect wife, but I was that wife that took care of the kids, worked a job every day, had supper ready in the evenings, even though he didn't work a regular job.
Yeah.
I had supper ready in the evenings. I did the laundry. I cleaned the house. I did all those things. And it still wasn't good enough. In the end, when it unraveled, it took me with it, and I ended up a drug addict as well.
Yeah.
Because the pressure and the weight of everything I had tried to take on was too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's what will happen in this
No,
case.
I know what you're saying.
Personally, that's what happened.
Yeah.
You take on things that you were never meant to take on.
Yeah. And then it interferes with your walk with God.
Yes.
It drains you of your energy and your strength.
Yes.
And those are all
It's
things
exhausting.
that teach us in recovery. Like we've got to
Yes.
address those things because we're no good for anybody else.
Right.
If we're drained of all those things.
And
if
God
we're
forbid,
depleted.
God forbid if you have children,
Yeah.
you know, that's what they're seeing and that's what
Yeah.
you're showing them, and is
Yeah.
that a correct way to
Right.
do it?
Pretending like it's not there.
No. Working
That's
together
harder.
to find a solution to the problem, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. So we're praying for you.
absolutely. Let's see. Oh, another coworker asked me, "How do you maintain your sobriety?"
Jesus. A lot of Jesus.
That was my first answer. I was like, Jesus. That's how I
Prayer,
maintain it.
reading my Bible. For me, it was how do I maintain it? That's really a tough question for me to
It's a
answer. Let me tell
hard
you why. Because I
question.
don't wake up in the morning and be like, "Oh, I'm a drug addict. I got to be sober today."
Right.
Sobriety has become a way of life, and so I don't honestly I don't look at it as sobriety anymore. I am sober, obviously.
it's just life.
This is me crazy sober, but
life.
it's just a way of
Yeah.
life, and so. Don't get me wrong. I don't take it for granted. And when I do pray, I crucify the flesh because I know what my flesh is capable of.
Ooh, mine's-
But I don't have to go through the day and be all shaken and nervous like,
Right.
oh, how do I choose my sobriety? Thankfully, God has delivered me and brought me to a place where
Yes.
I don't have to just dwell on that all the time.
Right.
I know there probably are those that are, and I will still go back to my original answer, Jesus.
Yes, the word.
The word.
The word every time.
It's a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. Like it's gonna give you
Yes.
the answer every time.
Um,
Community, your circle.
Yes, your circle. Your
Your
circle
circle.
matters.
Yes, it does.
Boy, does it matter.
It matters.
But yeah, and to not to ignore things when they come up.
Yeah.
You know, because in addiction, we're real good at just
Yeah.
acting like all is right with the world.
yeah.
And you have no emotion because the drugs mask everything.
Yeah.
Alcohol does the same thing. So pornography addiction does the same thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking about all kinds of things here. When you allow yourself not to feel feelings and emotions, that's not healthy.
Yeah. Pay attention to those red flags when they
Yes.
pop up. Pay attention to them.
My
Don't
poor
ignore 'em.
husband, sometimes he be wishing I would not be so emotional. Bless his heart.
When me and Matt first got together, there was a show that he watched, and we weren't in church at the time. I'm not going to say what show it was, but there was a show that he watched, and it was about a motorcycle gang, and everybody's going to know what show I'm talking about now.
I used to love that show.
But when we started dating, and I would watch it around him, I was like, "You can't watch that around me.
No, I can't do that.
I can't watch that. Like it's too it takes me back to
Yeah.
some bad places."
Yes.
Or what was in the Breaking Bad? I never watched that show. I was like, skirt.
I did when I was addicted.
But
True.
so like
Yeah.
there's certain things that when you feel those red
Yes,
flags,
you know better.
listen to them. That
Yes.
sounds so silly to say it, but
It's
for
true,
real,
though.
I felt it like in my chest, and I was like, I shouldn't be watching this. This is not.
Right.
And I wasn't in church at the time, but I was like, I shouldn't be watching
Yeah,
this.
it's not good for me.
So pay attention to those little
When you
things
know
that
better,
pop
you
up.
do better.
Yeah,
So
absolutely,
it's one of those things.
absolutely.
Yeah. What you got
I
next?
feel that. I have another anonymous one. It says, I just want to know why I'm not enough. I want to know why I'm not enough for you to want to get clean and to stay clean. I want to know how you can do that to your family.
Well, first of all, this is going to sound, I'm going to word this carefully. It's not about being enough,
Yeah.
because any way you slice it, addiction is a disease.
Yeah.
And people get all when you say that, but it's true, it's a disease.
Yeah, it is.
Nobody chooses to become an alcoholic, a drug addict,
Right.
an addict of any kind or anything. Nobody chooses that. It's not that you're not enough. It's that this is a disease And it doesn't matter. You can't do anything, say anything, be anything, or any kind of way
Right.
to make them choose you over
Yeah.
the disease. It doesn't work
It's
that
the
way.
truth.
And I wish it did, because if it did, then there would be a lot less drug addicts. And I believe that. I say early on in my marriage, my first marriage, all the time, that I was smart enough to know very early on not to ever ask him to choose, because I wouldn't have liked the answer. So I never did. I just kept enabling and kept allowing it and kept shoving it under the rug and
Yeah.
going on with my life and raising my kids and trying to be the best wife and person I could be. And I just let him do it because I knew better than to make him choose. So it's not about being enough. It's about the fact that you are up against something that is so much bigger than you are. And you've got to have true deliverance. You've got to have God truly meet you where you are and deliver you, or deliver that person. It's just not about that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sad but true.
Anyway,
So you're out of questions.
I got one more.
Go.
So the last question I have is, what do you do when you see others and see signs of addiction, and others like you and family members or you and friends see signs of an addiction or a relationship that is not healthy, maybe abusive, volatile in a person, but they're not trying to recognize it or hear it?
It makes me cough over here, y'all.
We talk about denial all the time.
We talking about addiction. I'm over here. I'm coughing, y'all. Choking me up. When you see it in someone else
Yeah.
and they don't want to acknowledge it,
Yes, Cheryl asked this question today, and I thought this was an interesting question.
well, you ain't never gonna make someone acknowledge something that they don't want to acknowledge. Unfortunately, that's the truth of it. I remember as strung out as I could be, went to jail. Definitely left that out of my story. Thought about that the other day. Went to jail for shoplifting. Called my grandpa 3 days in. My grandpa sends my Uncle Gerald to come pick me up. And I remember him asking me, "You've heard the story. I mean, how long you going to do this?" And I'm like, "Do what?"
What are you talking about?
My face all eat up. Look like a gerbil been eating on my face. That's probably too much. But literally, and don't get me wrong, I knew what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah,
It was just addiction though.
yeah. You were maintaining.
Yeah. I could put it down anytime I wanted to.
That's why your face looked like a planet. Yeah. Anyway,
Like a shotgun shell, like them little bees, you know. Bam, bam, bam. Not shotgun. Is that? Yeah, shotgun.
yeah, BBs. Yes.
Girl. And I show my mugshot for when I teach the first lesson of Celebrate Recovery, because it's denial and I'm talking about the face of denial. But more times than not, whoever this person is that you're talking about, if they're not willing to
Yes.
admit they have a problem, it's kind of a moot point. The best thing you can do is pray for them, in my opinion,
Yes.
because somebody that doesn't want to admit, it's just like praying for somebody that's full of the devil. This is off topic, but if you praying for somebody that's full of the devil and they don't want that devil to go away, you
Jesus.
really just fighting. It's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Like you
wasting your energy
you really
and your
are.
time and your
Yeah.
breath. Yeah.
And so that's really similar to an addict. If an addict doesn't want to admit they have a problem, I was there. I lived the life. I walked the path. And you know this. If we didn't want to admit that there was
No.
anything wrong, you were not going to change us.
No.
There was nothing to change. What are you talking
Nothing
about?
wrong with me.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with me.
You're the one with the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know why you always in my business.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
So,
grown. I do what I want
For
to.
sure. You know,
All the things.
I ain't hurting you.
Right? And nine
just
times out of
having
10,
fun.
the person that is struggling with this, or you see this in, 9 times out of 10, that person's got an enabler.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a relationship that is not
Yep.
correct. That they're going to enable one another.
Mm-hmm.
Been there, done that
Yep.
more than once. So that's where that is. And if the prayer is the ultimate answer to that, because just like you said, if somebody doesn't want to give it up, they're not going to give it up.
No.
That's why I also feel like this is kind of maybe not with that, but with that. This is why I kind of feel like too, it's also very important for families. I know there are people that listen to us that have family members that are actively lost in addiction. And right now, they don't want help.
Mm-hmm.
There are classes for you. There are our class. We've had people come to our class before that they're not the addict. Their family member's an addict. And they just need some encouragement. They just need some help. They just need to know,
Yeah.
like, they just need a community of people. Find that. Find that for yourself.
Yep.
Especially if it's a family member or close loved one that is not on a good path and they don't seem to want to talk about it or acknowledge it right now. That's important.
It is very important.
What else you got?
I'm over here trying to find that class that I was trying to find earlier.
Oh,
The next one is Nicole asked, what are some warning signs to look for from someone that may be starting to experiment
oh.
with substances? Look, we live in a different world than we lived in growing up, okay?
Boy, do we ever.
My thing, I post videos all the time because the epidemic right now is
Fentanyl.
fentanyl.
K2.
And it ain't just looking like fentanyl.
No.
I'm telling you, it looks like a Skittles.
Yeah.
It looks like a Tylenol.
A piece of paper.
Kids are telling other kids, hey, I got a headache. And they're like, oh, yeah, I've got, and they'll hand them what they think is a Tylenol. And these
Yeah.
kids will go to the water fountain, take this pill, and die in 30 seconds.
We can't bring paper into work anymore because they put it on paper and
Yeah.
lick the paper. And
Yes.
yeah, so we're not allowed to bring paper into work anymore. We haven't been for a long time.
Like, this is a different world.
work in the prison.
So if, from the
So,
perspective
yeah.
of like experiment in minors, I would tell all you parents, start having hard conversations with your kids.
And
Quit-
educate yourself.
Yes.
A lot of you parents don't even know half of what your
No.
kid is doing
No.
when you ain't around.
Educate yourself.
Educate yourself and educate your kid.
Like, for real,
Don't take
y'all.
the attitude of, well, we're a Christian family and we go to this church and that is great and wonderful. Your kid is not immune.
No.
I'm just saying, I'm not being any kind of way. Your kid is not immune. Educate yourself. Educate your family. That is so important. Oh my word.
You have no idea.
And
Like,
if your kid starts to become withdrawn, not even a kid, an adult, if all of a sudden that was one of the first things that probably, other than the person that I was with, that was one of the first things that happened on the path to addiction is I began to isolate myself from my family.
yeah.
And we are very close.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge red flag for them.
Yeah.
And I would argue at the drop of a hat. And I'm not with my family. I wasn't that way.
Yeah.
One of the only fights my sister and I have ever been in, I don't mean when we were kids, how you yank back and forth. I mean, as adult teenagers and up, one of the only fights that I can ever say we've been in is when I was the beginning of addiction and she called me and she was calling me on my mess and I let her have it. And she let me have it right back. And I deserved it. That is the only time I ever can tell you that I've been in a fight with my sister. And it was over the phone, but it was, to this day, I don't
But
remember.
knowing the two of them, it was still physical.
Listen, I don't remember a lot from addiction, but I remember that phone call. And I
Yeah.
can take you to the spot where it happened.
Sure.
Because there was something in me, in the deep, deep recesses of me that knew you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be doing this. This is your, like, what are you thinking right now? Because if anybody's going to love me and go to bat for me, it's going to be my sister.
Yes, it is, girl.
So there was something, and that to this day, I will say that was one of the things that when it turned, it turned.
Yeah.
And I knew in that moment, you've gone too far. You've gone
Yep.
too far right now.
Yep.
So anyway,
but for sure, educate yourself.
Yes. Don't be dumb.
Stop being scared to talk to your kids about drugs. And don't make the mistake of, even if they're adult kids, even if they're whatever, your
Right.
family in general, don't make the mistake of saying that would never happen to
Never
my
happen to my
family.
family.
That would never happen to my family.
think
Because
again.
I've rubbed shoulders with the poorest of families and the richest of families that have gone through
And everything in
devastation
between.
from
Yes.
addiction. So please don't make the mistake of saying that would never happen to us. That would, no, I'm serious. Have the hard conversations.
Yes.
Talk to your kids about it. I don't care how young they are. When they old enough to be able to understand stuff like that, talk to them about
If
it.
they can watch a cell phone and know how to operate a cell
Thank
phone, they
you.
can probably learn about drugs.
Thank
And
you.
alcoholism and pornography and sex and all
Thank
that
you.
good stuff. So it's not
And
good stuff.
Al-Anon. That's
But-
the class I was trying to think of.
there you go.
Al-Anon.
Al-Anon.
It is for family support. It's for family support. That's a little plug for Al-Anon.
Yes.
I ain't never been to an Al-Anon class, but it's on my list of things I want to do.
I haven't
They have
either.
some in Livingston.
Maybe we should go.
Yep. I keep
But
saying
yeah,
I want to go.
Educate yourself. Educate your kids. Educate
Yeah.
your family.
For sure.
Look out for your coworkers. Can we
Yep.
just talk about that for a minute? Look out for your coworkers. I mean, if you have a job you hate, maybe you don't talk to your coworkers. I feel like you still should witness to them.
Yeah.
Invite them to church. Look out for your coworkers. There's been 2 times lately when out of the blue, and I work at the prison, y'all. Out of the blue, a coworker has opened up to me about something, and in that moment, I have felt God say, "You need to pay attention. You're working with people that are hurting,
Yeah.
and they don't know where to turn." But and I am nobody. Believe me, I fail every day. But one of the ladies basically said, "I see something in you and on you, and I feel like I can talk to you." And in that moment, I just felt like, "Oh my goodness, this matters." Look out for your coworkers. Pay attention to people around you.
Yeah.
That really struck a chord in me
For sure.
this past week. So yeah, be watchful, be vigilant.
Candace asked, when you first got sober, did your family still struggle with trusting you? If so, how did y'all overcome that? I mean, we could have brought our families up in here today, but
Listen,
we probably really, truthfully, don't want to hear what they have to say. Did they trust us? I
No.
wasn't allowed to lock the bathroom door.
no.
I had to potty with an unlocked door. Okay?
Listen, I went through a whole year of recovery away from home in a facility.
They still was hiding their stuff.
And listen, and I will say this, full disclosure, my parents, my kids, my family, never one time did they make me feel like they didn't trust me.
Yeah.
But after the
But they
fact,
didn't, I promise.
After the fact, and you look back on different little things.
Yeah.
Like my parents would take the phone to bed with them every night. Because when I came back from recovery, I had nothing left. I had to move in with them.
Yeah.
And they, stay in the spare room. And they were very, like, you just stay here as long as you want. We
Sure.
don't want you to feel pressured. We don't want you to be rushed.
Yeah.
Like, you're good, da-da-da. We're just glad that you're safe, you're sober, you're alive, you're
Yeah.
home. We just want you to. And so I very much eased back into life. I did.
Yeah.
But they would low key take the car keys and the phone to bed with them at night, and I don't blame them. But I didn't in that moment, in that time frame, I did not notice it.
Yeah.
It was after some time had gone by, and we would talk about things and be sitting around, and
Yeah.
and somebody would mention, we supported you, and there was a part of us that knew you were healed, but there was another part of us that was afraid.
That remembered.
Yeah, and so I get it.
But I think as an addict, like if you're watching and you're stepping into sobriety and you're wondering if that will ever end, it will.
It will.
You just stay true to the
Yes.
steps that you need to be taking, and you don't give up. And you have to also understand we earned that. It was
Yeah.
our behavior that had earned them feeling
Absolutely.
like that. And I think I always knew that. Like I never begrudged my mom or
No.
my grandparents or anybody like that had to take those steps. I think that I always knew they are acting that way because I definitely was stealing from them,
Yeah,
or I
I
definitely
warranted that.
was crazy, or I definitely was
now.
strung out. So once I settled that within myself and I allowed them the space to feel how they wanted to feel, because you got to remember they're entitled to feel how they
Sure
want. They've
they
been through
are.
some stuff.
Yeah.
So you got to continue to just walk out what you need to walk out. And then one day you realize, hey, they just handed me the keys to their car.
Yes.
Hey, they just They just
I'll
left me at
never-
their house,
I'll
and they
never
got cash
forget.
sitting on their bedside table.
When my mom, we were driving to the store and she's like, hey, will you go get me whatever? And handed me her debit card. And I was like,
Yeah,
I remember looking at her and going, Mom, I can't go in here by myself. And she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can do it. You're good. Like, and I was like, no, I can't. And she's like, Elena, you're fine. You're going to make it. I'm going
You
to
got
watch
this.
you. I'm going to watch you go in the store.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch you come out. Y'all, I was terrified.
Yeah. Hey, when you
But I
ain't
was
done
also a little bit like, oh, she gave me her
this,
debit card.
yeah, promotion.
Yeah. I live by this motto. I learned it when I was in recovery, and I live by this motto. And the guys at work will tell you when they're slipping or doing something wrong, I'll be like, hey, get your life together. People may doubt what you say, but they're always going to believe what you do.
Yeah.
So you can tell somebody, I'm sober, I'm healed, I'm this, I'm that. But
they're
your
watching
actions,
your actions.
your actions better line up with
Yeah.
that. Because believe me, people are going to watch what you do a whole lot more than they're going to listen
Yeah.
to what you say.
And when your actions do line up, they will.
That's when the
they
trust
do
comes
come
back.
around.
That's when
Yeah.
they absolutely.
Yeah. So there's that. Pam asked, why does guilt remain so deep inside of family members who have had to decide to distance themselves physically because of their safety? Not only did I have guilt, she said, for myself for saying no more, but I received the I can't believe you did this comments from other people whenever she made the decision to separate herself.
Well, first of all, other people need to mind their business. Mm-hmm. And I mean that because until you've walked in those shoes, rode that boat, as I like to say, you have no right to judge
Yeah.
the actions of anybody.
Absolutely.
My family had to make some hard decisions when I was lost in addiction. I'll never forget my sister having to look at me with tears streaming down her face saying, Elena, you can call me at any time and I'll come get you and take you wherever you want to go, but you can't come back to our house. You can't come stay there. Because I would get thrown out or he would kick me out or this, that, or I would have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And I would call and she would come pick me up and I would sleep on their couch or stay there a day or two or whatever. Well, that's when my oldest niece was just little bitty.
Mm-hmm.
She was just a few years old. And there came a point where my brother-in-law, in love, said, listen,
Can't do this
I
anymore.
love your sister and we'll be here for her, but she can't come crash at our house anymore.
Yeah.
She can't bring that mess in our house. And he would, rightfully so. I love my brother-in-law
Sure,
to death. I have
yeah.
a great brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And my sister, with tears running down her face, told me that. And I'll never forget it because she didn't want to.
Sure,
She
you're her
had to.
sister.
Yeah. And so there were probably some people that said,
How you gonna treat
"Oh,
your
that's
sister
your
like
only
that?
sister. How you going to treat her like that?" She had every right to. Believe me, I needed.
Just like we had the right to make the decisions that we
Yes.
made to walk down the path that
Yeah.
we have to remember that.
people have to
It's
draw
hard, but-
lines and have boundaries.
Yeah.
And so when they are not walking in your shoes and they don't know where you are,
cares?
number one, don't expect them to understand.
Yeah.
But number two, don't get upset when they don't. Just lovingly or kindly tell them, hey, when you're walking in my shoes, then maybe you'll understand.
Yeah.
I pray you never do. But God, as long as you've heard from God and you and God got it worked out, don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Sometimes you got to stand in some places where it's not popular to stand, especially with addicts.
yeah.
And it's hard. It's worse than hard. It is. Yeah.
I agree.
But you have to draw lines and you have to create boundaries. If you don't, then you become an enabler or you continue to be an enabler. And that's not healthy for you and it's not helping them at all. So,
And staying on that, because Jessica asked about enabling, so go right into enabling. Like, and she talked about enabling and how do you. She was asking, how do you prevent it? How do you deal with it? How do you don't do it,
yeah,
and it's hard.
just learn the word no.
I'm not saying that easily. I know.
It's
Because
yeah.
I'm an enabler by nature. Like I want to take everybody in.
Yes.
I want to fix your
Fix
problem
everything.
for you. Oh, you can't fix it yourself. That's okay. Let me fix it. And it is a very hard thing to break. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm the one left behind, broken,
holding the bag. Yep.
holding the bag. Cut up from their broken pieces,
Yes.
crying because ain't nobody even realized I was there helping. enabling, I said it earlier, it is literally loving someone to death.
Yes.
You are not helping them. You are actually enabling them
Yes.
to make their way straight to hell and
Yes.
straight to destruction and straight to, I always say, I'm so grateful that I had people that were willing to take their hands off of me,
Yes.
physically, to take their hands off the situation and say, you know what, Michelle, I love you, but if rock bottom's where you got to go to get
Yeah.
out of this, then so
Then,
be
yep.
it. I hate it. I don't want to watch. I mean, you talk to my family that live in Livingston, they will tell you, seeing me walk around or running into me here or whatever, I'm sure it broke their heart. But at the end of the day, if they had kept getting me
Yep.
hotel rooms, and Brenda would put me up in a hotel room from time to time, or she did a couple times, or if they would let me sleep on their couch, there was a family in the church that would let me come and sleep on their couch, and it had to stop.
Yeah.
It's not going to make them want to get better.
No
matter what you're enabling them
Absolutely
with. If it's
not.
codependency, addiction, depression, anxiety,
Right.
whatever it is you're handling with kid gloves, you're not helping them.
No. And that's
At
a
all.
hard drawing lines and boundaries in that area, in the area of enabling is really hard.
Especially when it's a child or
Yeah.
a
A loved
spouse or-
one, a
yeah.
spouse, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's necessary.
It is.
And as long as you take it to God and allow Him to ease that burden, allow Him to let you cast your cares on Him,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what the Word says. Let Him take that weight, because it is heavy and it doesn't make sense, and it goes against everything in our nature.
Yeah.
Everything in our nature it goes against.
Yeah.
But it's almost always a necessary step to take when somebody that is lost in any kind of addiction. Because if you don't, they're just going to keep on,
Yeah.
and it's going to get worse.
For sure.
It's not going to get better.
That's the truth. Melissa asks, is there a way to distance yourself from a friend or family member without making them feel you have given up on them? And just a quick plug, this is my cousin. And I hope she knows that I never felt like she gave up on me. I hope you know that. So if you're listening, Melissa, I never thought you gave up on me. So you handled it quite well. But I'm going to let Elena answer this question.
I just am having to do that with someone recently. And it's been difficult because you don't want them to feel like something is amiss or
Yeah.
something is changing or the dynamic is changing. So what I have done is I genuinely prayed and asked God. I said, God, I don't want them, basically, for lack of a better way to describe it, I don't want them to notice that I'm taking a huge step back,
Yeah.
because I don't want to hurt them.
Sure.
But
But I also know what I got to do.
yeah, but I have to take a huge step back.
Yeah.
And so what I have tried to do is restructure my relationship with them.
Yeah.
I pray for them.
Yeah.
I take it to God on a daily basis. And when I feel it like it's okay to reach out and say, hey, just wanted you to know you were on my mind today. Love you. Praying for you. Whatever. Or sometimes just, hey, just thinking about you. Want you to know I love you.
Yeah.
If you need anything, I kind of let God lead me and guide
Navigate
me
it.
in that area.
Yeah.
I don't say yes to every invitation or need for them to, I need to talk to you, or can we meet, or can we do this, or can we do that? I'm sorry, I have to do this today. And I don't lie.
Yeah.
I genuinely will say, I'm sorry, I have this to take care of. Maybe we can do it another time.
Yeah.
And and it's still hard. But I believe that if it's genuinely needed for you to take a step back and that God will let that be a smooth transition, if you will, because God's never going to put you in a position that you're going to damage somebody. I don't believe he's going to allow that.
Yeah.
Not if you are truly seeking after the mind and the heart of God.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to do it the right way.
Sure.
If you're not walking in your flesh, not doing it in your flesh, you'd be like, I've had enough of them. I'm done with them. I'm just
Yeah.
going to,
Yeah.
no, don't do that. But genuinely consult God and seek after him and ask him, God, open a door, make a way for me to take a step back without hurting this person or offending this person or causing greater pain to them.
Yeah.
Because they're already in enough pain. And I'm confident that he will do that because I've had to do it recently and it's not comfortable. It stinks.
For sure.
But I know that he will help you do that. Just unfortunately, sometimes that has to happen.
Yeah. And, you know, there's also going to be instances where the person that you're trying to distance yourself from, they know.
Yeah. 9 times out of 10, they know.
They know.
Usually. I would know.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of people that had to distance themselves from me.
Yeah.
And I would know. My best friend, Kim, she talks all the time about it.
Yeah.
But you know what she would do? She stayed in contact with my family. She would even come and bring her little girl for play dates with my nieces and my sister. And my mom would show up and they would have lunch and they would visit. I didn't know about it because obviously they didn't go plaster it all over Facebook and
Right.
put it all over. They
Right.
kept it quiet because they didn't want to hurt my feelings. But they also knew
Because
that
Elena crazy.
yeah, because I'd be crazy. But they also knew that they couldn't include me because I was strung out on drugs.
And she would have shown up at that McDonald's playland and been like, oh, you ain't going to invite me?
Listen. And so they had to do these things but they kept it low key, and she would do that to check on me
Yeah.
and keep in contact with my family and see how I was doing. So,
Sure.
anyway,
I get it. So Dee asked, how do you think grief relates to addiction?
well,
I think you can get addicted to your grief.
absolutely. It can also lead you to pick up other things to mask the grief and mask the pain. As you know, I'm doing a series right now on grief, and I'm going to be presenting it soon. And there's so many layers to grief. Everyone grieves differently.
Yep.
There's no formula. It's not like you go to the doctor for a heart condition and, you know, the treatment's relatively the same for most people.
Yeah.
It might vary a little bit, but it's mostly the same. If you go to the ER with a broken arm, you can pretty much know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Grief is nothing like that. There's no two are the same. And so when grief comes and you are not ever equipped to deal with it, when it comes, you will literally look for anything to make it stop.
Yeah.
Anything. Doesn't matter what that is. And different people turn to different things. And not always substances, not always drugs,
Right.
not always alcohol.
Right.
Different people turn to different things. I know that people that will spend every dime they've got shopping and ordering stuff and buying stuff because they are in such a state of grief that it gives them a relief. But because while they're acquiring things and buying things and that adrenaline is pumping and those endorphins are going, they don't have to think about the
And
pain.
deal with it. Yeah.
They don't have to deal with it. I know people that will just get in a car and just drive, and they just drive and drive and drive and drive and drive and drive, and then hours later they end up somewhere and they're like, "Well, how did I get here?"
Yeah.
In the moment, because in that moment the grief began to overtake you and you could not deal with it. So people handle grief all different kinds of ways. So yeah, I do think it can be tied together, which is why it's important that you know this right here.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, and you don't know what the Bible says about death and grief, and you don't know the promise of eternity with Him, then it's even harder to walk through grief. And you can't be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
But we can talk about substance abuse and drug addiction, and alcoholism and pornography addiction and sexual immorality all day long. But you go to sit down with somebody and talk about your grief? People don't know how to handle grief. Grief is awkward. It's messy.
Yeah.
And there's no formula for
There's
it.
none.
I can take you to a recovery house if you want to get free from drugs
Yeah.
or alcohol,
Yeah.
even sexual pornography
Yeah.
or any kind of addiction and anything like that. But grief,
Ooh,
they don't have a recovery house for grief.
that's a different animal.
They don't have a treatment program for grief.
Yeah.
They got a few books written on it, but they don't have. So you're dealing with a whole different ballgame. And it is awkward. It is messy. It is uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
It scares people. It terrifies people because people don't know how to handle the emotions that come along with grief.
Yeah.
When I confront a drug addict, or when I see somebody on the street, or somebody comes to me in a state of addiction, or they come for advice or counseling or whatever, we could do that with our eyes closed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being any kind of way. We could do that with our eyes closed because I know what to expect. I know the emotions that come with that. I know all the things that are tied to that.
Yeah.
I can do that in my sleep. But
Yeah.
grief,
Ooh.
that's a monster. I mean that. Personally, it's a monster.
And not
And
the
it-
one from that Pixar movie.
No, it rears its head at the dumbest of times.
Yeah.
And you can go, and here's the thing about grief, you can go a long time and you think, oh, yeah, I made it. Nope, you didn't. And then bam, here it comes again.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do think that at times it can go hand in hand. And it's not necessarily just, like I said, just a substance abuse or it's an addiction to anything.
Because you got to think most addictions are rooted in pain.
Yeah. Some people get addicted to work
Yeah.
in the middle of grief.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. Like I said, there's a whole series coming on that. So, 'cause I feel like it's important that we talk about it and address it. God's been dealing with me about that for a while now.
Yeah. I'm excited about it.
'Cause even in my own grief, it's been a journey, and it's
Yeah.
still a journey.
Sure it is.
We're coming up on 3 years, and it seems like it's been 3 days sometimes. So
I feel that
grief is heavy.
August was 3 years for my grandpa.
Yeah.
And feels like it just happened.
Yep.
So we have lots of other questions, but
We do,
I feel
but-
like we don't have to pause.
Yes, 'cause we get
there
all-
is one.
we getting all the
We'll
signs
do
from back
one
there.
on our way out because I feel like it's a good question. Jessica said, "Obviously, your relationship is divine." Talking about me and Elena.
It's elite. That's what
And
Bella
that's
says.
what Bella said, yeah. And no doubt meant to be. Did you two pray for each other? Meaning, did you pray that God would send you a friend or a sister? I feel like that's a healing question. Y'all are awesome. I think that, I mean, it's divine.
Yes.
It is divine.
What did she say the other night? What did Bella say? Y'all don't take this the wrong way. But I feel like you two are the smart version
Of Dumb and
of
Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. That's what she told us. That was Wednesday. She told us that.
Facts. She
Yeah.
ain't wrong.
No, she's not.
No lies told. No lies told.
I do remember praying for friends that
Yeah.
would enhance my life
Yeah.
and not take me down a path I didn't need to go down.
Yeah. Our circle matters. I think we knew that.
Yeah.
That was part of our healing process. And I
Yeah.
think that I never really understood the value of a friend until I went through addiction. And so I say that because addiction taught me the power of a friendship.
Yeah.
And the power of what where a friendship can lead you or the wrong relationship can lead you. So I knew in order to counter that, I was going to have specific people in my life that that were the opposite of that, obviously. I think that, like, if someone asked me what kind of value or what kind of values do you look for in your best friend or look for in somebody like the spot that Elena holds in my life, I would think that there's no one like Elena, number one. Number two, I know she prays. And I know she prays for my family. And I know she prays for things that go on in my life. And if you want to know like what kind of values you should be looking for in a friend, those are things. You need somebody that's going to tell you
Yes.
when you messed up. Michelle, you messed up. Or Michelle, that ain't right. Or I know you ain't going to like this, but this is what, you need somebody like that. And I think that is kind of what it's part of that beautiful, sober life that God gives.
Yeah.
That I don't have to fight for it. It's just like this beautiful thing that God put in my life when he gave me you, because we came here and we've already told our story, but it's so crazy, the similarities of our life.
Yes.
And then we come here at the same time, kind of like really. And then there was just this, weird connection. Like the first time I met you, I feel like the first time I really got to know you and got to talk to you and all, it was like, I've been knowing this girl. Am I sure that I ain't knowing this girl? Because I feel like I've been knowing this girl. But it is this divine thing. I know that I prayed for God to change my life.
Yeah,
I know I prayed for God to put the right people in my life.
absolutely.
And so,
Yeah.
did I specifically pray for a best friend that I would do a podcast with and all that? I may not have prayed for that thing specifically,
Right.
but that's what's so cool about God is
Yeah.
He doesn't just answer your prayers and
No,
say,
he
"Oh, there
gives
you
you
go."
way more than you
yeah,
ask for.
He gives you way more. I'm sure I'm more than she asked for.
Listen, I feel like yes, I have. Okay, so I have two. I don't do well with a lot of friends like that are
Yeah.
like needy people and like need you to. I
She don't.
got Kim and I got you, and I have other friends. Y'all don't get offended if you're my friend and you're watching this. That ain't what I mean. And
Don't
'cause-
unsubscribe
No,
to our
don't unsubscribe because I have other friends that
She
we.
thought she was your best
We
friend.
do things
She's
with
mine.
no,
She
we do
counts.
things with, and we go places with, and we'll go to dinner or we'll do whatever, and we'll do things at church or whatever. But people that have that place in your life that God just puts, and you just know.
Yeah.
I mean, I there's a lot of people that I do just about anything for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of friends that could call me day or night, and I'd drop whatever and go and help y'all. Y'all know that.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about people. You are that person that because I'll second guess myself. God will be like, Elena, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, but Lord, but I feel that's
And
my
I'm
problem.
over here handing her mic saying, "No, you need to say it.
Yeah.
You need to do it."
Yeah. Or God will speak something to me. Like the other day, something was going on last week when I was sick, week before last when I was sick. And I kind of felt like, but I was like, nah, you're just sick. You need to just calm down and go to bed. This one over here be knowing. And after the fact, she's like, well, I kind of felt like that. You couldn't have told me that 5 days ago when I was on my deathbed and I died 3 times in a day. I mean, I don't understand. And then a few days after that, we're sitting at the table doing something. And I said, this thing that I started in the beginning, I felt it was right. But now I tried to do it 2 or 3 times. It didn't work. And I just feel like God's saying no. She said, oh, yeah, God, I felt that when you said it. And I just didn't want to hurt your feelings. Please hurt my feelings. Because now we done been through all this. So,
Man, Elena, that person you really don't want to hurt her feelings because she might swing at you or she might. I'm just kidding.
no, but you need a friend like that. You need a friend that's going to tell you, hey, I ain't trying to make you mad, but I don't feel like that's for you right now.
Yeah.
God told me, and when Michelle said the Holy Ghost just spoke to me and said, I listen because I know that it's true. I don't have to wonder, well, I wonder if she prayed today. I wonder if she in her work. I don't have to wonder about that. I don't wonder about that ever. So that is vital that you have people in your life like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Vital.
I feel the same way.
And
about mine.
I'm just going to say this carefully. I don't feel like you need 42 people speaking into your life.
Yeah.
But I will say there's a lot of people that could call me and give me a word or come
Sure.
to me and I'm going to take it to prayer and I'm going to receive it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, but I'm talking about on every level, any given time, any given day of the week, you and Kim are the 2 people that I just trust with my life. And
I feel that way
I
about
can't
you.
say that about a lot of people because
It is divine.
yes, it's divine. It's elite.
It's elite. It's Dumb and Dumber.
It's divine. It's divine elite. That's that top tier level right
Divine,
there. Divine
elite. These words. Who would have ever thought we'd have come through our addiction of being divine and elite?
I feel like we get there. Oh, and Matt's shaking his head.
He's like, y'all need to shut
And
up. These people
before
are
we
not going
wrap
to listen to
up-
this whole episode.
Before we wrap up, shout out to my daughter Emily for
Oh,
making
yes.
these awesome
Look at these
shirts.
awesome shirts.
Y'all, these are awesome.
Right?
Can
Look.
I just say, yes. So there's that.
We have merch.
Pray that we can get merch started soon. I feel like it's coming down the way.
Merch.
And we have something exciting coming up at the first of the year.
Yes.
Be
Details
listening.
coming soon.
Yes, and it's so exciting.
It is.
So anyway, we're going to shut up now.
Yes, we will.
Thank y'all for all your questions.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for all the
We'll
messages.
do something else like this again.
Thank you for joining in.
Yeah.
And
We
we'll see
love you
next
guys.
time. We love y'all.